Bigfoot, Bigfoot, roaming through the land. Bigfoot, Bigfoot, a hairy ape-like man.
Hello, my friends and fellow Bigfoot enthusiasts. Welcome to another episode of Bigfoot Today, the show that's all about Bigfoot. I'm your host, Stephen Major, and with me is my co-host, Mitch the Man Johnson. How you doing, Mitch?
Very well. Thank you for having me back. This is going to be a very good episode, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Wonderful. And I'll tell you what, we're very excited with the guest that we have coming up here in just a little bit. Kevin Llewellyn, very experienced BFRO investigator, and just excited to have him on the show. He's got some wonderful things to share with us. And right now, we'll be right back after a short break.
This show is sponsored by Extreme Expeditions Northwest LLC, your gateway to adventure, specializing in guided Bigfoot expeditions to Alaska and throughout the Pacific Northwest and Canada.
All right, my friends, well, welcome back. This is the time of the show where we talk about what's new in Bigfoot and also do our film review. Mitch, what's new? You know of anything?
A lot of interesting things going on. Reaching out for confidentiality reasons and whatnot, but very, very reliable. There is a production company that wants to go back in, or go in, I shouldn't say back in. It's not the same as what you went with, to go back into Port Chatham. And so it's very interesting. I'm very excited to see what they come up with. I guess one of my questions to you to start with, though, is having been there for three different times, and I'm a big believer that we learn from our experiences. What would you like to see from this upcoming expedition going into Port Chatham? Because I think I made it perfectly clear, I don't want to see the same old tired thing of Elmer Fudd walking through the forest looking for Sasquatch. Not to say you're Elmer Fudd, but I'm just like, you know, all that, just the back of guys' heads walking around in the woods. Yeah. So I want to see something different. So do you have any ideas on that?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know much about it. I've kind of heard the same rumor that...
But just if you, just hypothetically, that... Well, we'll cut.
Well, I'll tell you what we were going to do is I've already been to Port Chatham 3 times. The initial trip was when we did our recon in 2018, June of 2018, when Adam Davies and I and our cameraman, Josiah Martin, went out there to do our initial recon before the full-blown expedition and film that was going to come up. And that was the first trip by any Bigfoot investigators into Port Chatham in Alaska. We were the first,
right,
in the history of it, and which was very significant. The first to go out there, and then we followed that up with our film In Search of the Port Chatham Hairy Man that a lot of people have seen, and really enjoyed making the film there. And then we came back in May of 2019, and we did that episode for the Alaska Triangle. Their version of it was the Hairy Man of Port Chatham. If you haven't seen that, they did a really great job with that.
Yes, they did.
Now, to get back to your question, when you're asking me what I would like to see is this. What I would like to see is something really significantly new done up there. And this is what I mean by that. We've never been able to go into Port Chatham, Alaska, and spend more than 4 days in there. So you can't really accomplish a lot in 4 days. What I would like to see is the next expedition that goes into Port Chatham goes in there better funded than us, with the ability to stay on the ground for at least 30 days. That's what I would like to see, especially if you're going to shoot a multi-part series. And I heard it was a multi-part series, not a movie.
Sure.
But to be able to do that, I think you would really be able to uncover some significant evidence and maybe have a sighting.
Well,
now,
establish a residency, if you will.
Well,
and even what I would like to see is some sort of a living pod, a pod that, a living unit that would maybe be helicoptered into the middle, because we definitely not going to have roads coming in there. But and then just kind of set up and kind of commune with nature and Sasquatch. And and do that establish. I don't know that that's ever been done. It's because of monetary or constrictions. It's usually just a quick in and then that's it.
Well, part of the problem is it's very expensive to get out there.
Yes.
I mean, you've got to have the gear, you have to have a boat, all of these things. And you have to also there's safety considerations. Now, from weather, animals, and things of that nature that you're going to run into out there. There's a lot of hazards.
But there's a lot of, I'll put my accountant hat on for a second. A lot of those expenses are just fixed costs of getting there.
Yeah.
The only variable is the mamby-pamby film people who don't want to be out there for that long. And, I don't think any of the researchers, whoever's involved in this, have a problem with going out there and staying for a month or two even. But, I don't want to be out there that long if you're one of the film guys. And those are the cats that we don't like. And I'll explain my reference to cats later.
Okay. Well, yeah, I agree with you on that. So anyways, in a nutshell, that's what I would like to see.
Good.
Is to go out there and to be able to do it seriously and not just throw together some quick film that, has a lot of false or fake drama in it without really spending the time out there to do significant investigations. Because we never got to accomplish our mission the last time we were out there. And what that mission was to travel up what we call the Valley of Death, up to the Lake of No Return. We've never been able to get up there. And it's usually because we ran out of time, but this last trip, it was because of the weather. I mean, we had some people that were getting hypothermia. It was very cold. I mean, the conditions were very, very bad. The weather was rough, and we couldn't stay any longer. But the reason that it's important for us to get up to that lake, and I call it the Lake of No Return because supposedly that's where sheep hunters, adult sheep hunters went and they never came back, is the trackway that we found of the 14-inch tracks was leading up into that valley, and we sent our drone up there, and we believe that we uncovered some possible cave entrances and things like that. So I would like to see that area investigated.
Lots more to explore.
Yeah.
Lots more.
So,
awesome.
Anyways,
Perfect.
We'll see what happens with that.
Very good.
Anything else?
Some things, but we're going to do that the next episode.
Wonderful. Well, that's going to be interesting to see him go back into Port Chat.
Yes. Yeah, I'm very excited to see what they come up with, for sure. I wish them the best. So, yeah.
As always. And, okay, well, I don't have much else that's new to talk about, so now it's time for our movie review.
Yes.
And we've got another good one for you. Some of you may have seen it. The film, actually, I thought it came out in 2019, but according to the what I read today, the movie actually came out in 2018. And this film is one of my favorites. It's another fiction film, and it's called The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot. If you haven't seen the movie, I highly suggest it, and we're going to play a trailer for it right now.
Okay.
My grandfather used to tell me stories all about this one soldier. As he got older, the stories got stranger. Some I believed, others I don't know. But it wasn't describing a man.
Wallet, keys.
It was more like something mythic, legendary. You didn't pull any swords from any stones, did you? But you might have done something. Something bigger, maybe.
So how have you been? You look a little tired. What's bothering you?
Things I could have done differently. Regrets. I shot someone during the war. I never wanted that, even if he had it coming. And he did.
You've heard about the killings up north?
What's the FBI have to do with it?
Imagine all our worst fears about influenza, inhumans, bovine, swine, all of it coming true to life, only worse.
It's the Bigfoot, Ed. They want me to kill it. It's the carrier of this plague-type thing.
Well, that's no good.
If we cannot contain the beast, if we cannot destroy it and it escapes, it could mean the very end of our world as we know it.
You're the last resort.
Well, Mitch, what did you think of the movie?
At first, I was very disappointed with it because I judged it by the title, and it's nothing like what the title would indicate. Had to kind of think about it, slept on it a little bit, thought, and then it just had one of those moments with a light bulb, and it's a brilliant movie. I mean, it's one of the best movies ever for what it actually is. Yeah, and lots to talk about. I want to take 2 hours to discuss it. So.
The reason there's a lot of reasons why I like this movie. A lot of reasons. Sam Elliott in particular is one of my favorite actors. But I picked this movie because I really liked it. But secondly, I think it's one of the most misunderstood movies that have Bigfoot in the title of the movie. Because I looked at some of the reviews when the movie first came out on Amazon and stuff like that. I read a number of the reviews, and then on social media, people were just talking about how they just hated the film and it was too phony and this and that. But first of all, it is a fiction film. But secondly, the whole story with this, the way it starts out in the beginning, here's a guy who's definitely up there in years, and it almost like his life has lost meaning. He didn't really have anything to do anymore, and he had this really adventurous life in his early days. He was a special soldier, and he tracked down Hitler and whacked him and did all this stuff. And then years later in life, and he's just like got nothing going on. And then the Bigfoot comes into the picture with the FBI showing up at his house and stuff like that, and kind of recruiting him for this mission. And there's reasons for it. You'll have to see the film, but it's done very well. But it covers his life and where he ends up today, and then how the entrance of the issue with the Bigfoot in the movie that shows up kind of revives him to a bit. Kind of revives his life, and he goes out there and he tries to accomplish this mission, and they tell you why, which you picked up in the trailer, about how he's going to hunt down Bigfoot and all of that. But there's some stuff in it that almost brought me to tears. I mean, it's a real tearjerker sometimes. But when he finally does catch up with the Bigfoot and stuff, it's some very emotional scenes.
Oh,
in that.
yes.
You know what I'm
Very
talking
much so.
about?
Yep.
When he finds it and he thought that it had already passed away, and and he brings tears in his eyes, and this isn't what I wanted, and he wept over the death of it. And that even though there was a reason he had to be out there, and it was a threat to mankind and stuff. But I just thought it was a wonderful film.
Right. From a societal perspective, in today's day and age, it is the most important movie for you to watch right now. It is. I'm going to get my note cards out here because there's so much to talk about. There's so much depth. And the first thing is it a guy movie or a girl movie? That term doesn't even matter anymore. A friend of mine posted on Facebook page, and it was something anniversary of Star Wars. It was what was it? 67 or something? No, 77. Sorry. And it showed a film of a bunch of geeks lining up to watch Star Wars. There wasn't a girl in that picture. It was just, and that was me. I was 17 years old at the time, and it was like, wow, history. So it's not really a guy. It's more of your state of mind. And so the movie is full of euphemisms. It's packed.
Thank you.
And so for you public school educated kids, which I am, and I brought my dictionary just so I could read to you so you know what that word means in this context. So just bear with me a second. And so euphemism. There's a number of different definitions, but the one that's appropriate here would be the substitution of an agreeable or inoffensive expression for one that may offend or suggest something unpleasant. Okay, so we're substituting something here. The man, played by him, Elliot, and anyway, so. Now, this is kind of like your cliff notes for the movie. So let's talk about some of those euphemisms before you.
Man, you did your homework.
Well, and this was just rushed this morning. I was really struggling with it, but now I got it. Number one, the man. The man represents 70 million American constitutionalist Second Amendment patriots. That's what he represents. And
really?
Yes. And I'll get into a little bit, but that's it. There's Second Amendment, guys. Second Amendment, for those of you who aren't, we believe in the freedom to have guns. He is. That's what he represents. I'll explain another problem with that. But number two, Hitler. Hitler in this movie is not Hitler. It could be anybody. But in our day and age, it's Potato Joe Biden. It could be anyone, though. It could be anybody who represents the, quote, figurehead, the talking head of our society. Currently, that seems to be Potato Joe. So
Potato Joe.
Yeah, yeah.
What, does he like potatoes?
No, he just looks like a potato.
Oh.
Remember Mr. Potato Head? Think about it next time you see Joe talking. The second thing, Bigfoot. And what caught me is the Bigfoot. They didn't say Bigfoot. They said the Bigfoot. And that was obviously very carefully chosen. The Bigfoot represents, and I'm just going to throw some terms out here. We can all agree to disagree on the correct term. But the Bigfoot represents the deep state, the communist, Marxist party. It represents whatever's going on out there that they think that we should not be able to have our own weapons. That's what the Bigfoot. And what caught my attention in the movie, in the movie is, here he is that he is a decorated war hero. I mean, highly skilled, because that's why in the storyline, the FBI comes, even though that's a four-letter word these days. But the FBI comes and recruits him. And then he says continually, I shot a man. I shot a man. Really? World War II? And singular, you shot a man? And I didn't want to. Really. It didn't fit. To me, that just bothered me, that continual, I didn't want to shoot.
But I got to tell you, in that scene when he's talking with those guys, that's not what I got out of the movie. Your
Right.
take on it, that's not what I saw in it. But in a certain way, there are some things there. But one thing, there are some euphemisms in there. And if you remember, when they're sitting at the table, he's talking to the FBI, he's really upset that they're asking him to go kill again.
Yes.
And then he talked about they was probing him about his history with the OSS or whatever, that it was in World War II, and he just kept looking at them before he kicked them out of their house, and he just said, I did what they told me to do. I did what they told me to do.
Isn't that what 70 million Americans have done to this point? We've been doing what we've been told, and we're done. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So yeah, but he kept doing what he was told, what he was told.
And he was upset about that.
He was a good. If in Hitler's army, you would refer to him as a brown shirt. He just did what he was told. There was a reference in there to Auschwitz and the trains, and everybody was did what they were told. So yes, he did, and he did not want to go. And so he was a very reluctant participant in that, just as what my Second Amendment brethren out there, and, well, doesn't have to be brethren, sisters, okay, I don't know, whatever we call that, they're reluctant. And so he didn't want to have to take action, but he was forced to it. And then the Bigfoot being, quote, whatever's going on out there in our world scene, he was very reluctant. But that's the impression I see whenever I look at all the social media. The Second Amendment people, as they say, the gun-toting wackos, they don't want to go shoot something. Look at the constraint. If they were as bad as everyone wants to portray everybody that owns a gun, seriously?
Okay.
You mean you can't take out an Antifa person as you're going through? But that's not what Americans want. So the analogy with that just is startling to me. But and this is a good movie for all the Antifa people out there to see, when we get backed into a corner, we will do what we have to do. And that's what he did with the Sasquatch, is the Sasquatch.
That's pretty heavy.
I know, it is. And that's what I haven't looked at further reviews, but I'm almost certain that's what the director and the writer of this was going for, it's like, yeah. And just even at the end, obviously they've already given it the title away that he killed Bigfoot. He apologized. He even said, this isn't what I wanted. I don't know if he referred to him as brother or just, I can't remember what he said, but it was a very, very powerful point in the movie. This isn't what I wanted. And if what's going on in our country continues to go, that will be the sentiment. So, yeah, I got a lot out of it.
Okay. And you remember that this show was all about Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. No, I know it's all about...
Because what I got, okay, as a former soldier myself, okay, I could relate to this guy.
Yeah.
I could relate to his reluctance to want to, commit violence in the name of whatever. Again, and I could relate to that. And in the ending scene, which is very emotional, when he finally, catches up with the Bigfoot, and I love that in the movie when he says, "You guys have got it wrong. His feet really aren't all that big," or whatever. I thought that was pretty humorous, but it was just his general concern at that stage in his life to not want to have to take any life, whether it be of an animal or something like that.
Right.
And that's what I got out of it.
But like you say, the show is about Bigfoot.
Because, I have a hard time shooting anything anymore. I mean, I used to hunt. I was a big hunter and all that kind of stuff. And frankly, I have a hard time pulling trigger on a deer anymore.
Right.
For some reason, I don't have a grouse. Maybe it's because they taste so good or something. But outside of that, well, that's a weird take on the movie.
But more to your point about the Bigfoot thing, and I know it's something that you're curious about because people were upset with it. And the reason they're upset is it is not a movie about Bigfoot. Period. End of story. It's about a whole nother.
Maybe that's because people were really upset over it.
Yes, and it's not as a Bigfoot movie.
They didn't understand it. But,
as a Bigfoot movie, it's okay. But as a movie, it's phenomenal. And and again, we'll get into this more in later episodes. But to use Bigfoot as part of your storyline just demonstrates how culturally accepted Sasquatch is and how we can use that.
Wow.
But as just far as the title, if you're looking for a good Sasquatch movie, I guess I'll be Ebert. It's not so great. But if you want to see a great movie,
it's an adventure movie.
Very good movie. And it keeps you guessing to the end, which I love about movies.
There is so many little, I don't know if you call them subplots or little facets to this, depending on, that appeal to different people. But there's many different things in here. Anyways, I think we've covered that pretty well.
Yep.
But I really enjoyed the movie. Once again, it's the man who killed Hitler and then Bigfoot.
The Bigfoot.
The Bigfoot. I know
Key
that.
word in there. The Bigfoot. That wasn't an accident or a typo.
Sorry, Sam Elliott. And I want to give credit to the guy who actually played the Bigfoot. And his name was Mark Steger. And I thought he did a great job.
He did.
Because his feet weren't really all that big, and he knew how to fight. And then that's all we got.
No, he stayed in character.
What's that?
He stayed in character, for sure.
He did a great job.
No, I didn't think of that, but that was good.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your mind-blowing
No,
analysis
I'm going to
of
watch
this
it again.
film.
Now that I've had this revelation of, okay. Yeah. And
Okay.
it's a good movie.
Wonderful. All right. We're done with the movie review, and we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with our guest, Kevin Llewellyn from the BFRO. Thank you.
This show is sponsored by the Private Money Store Incorporated. They specialize in private real estate lending for commercial or business purposes in Washington State.
Okay, my friends, welcome back. And it's that time of the show where we're going to bring in our guest. And once again, I want to say that we have Kevin Llewellyn, who is a BFRO investigator and also an avid outdoorsman. He's a retired veterinarian. He has a lot of experience, and he's been doing Bigfoot for a long time. He's got a lot to share. So please welcome Kevin Llewellyn. Hey, welcome to the show,
Good
man.
to see you again.
You too. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for coming.
And hi, Mitch.
Yes.
We're socially distanced.
Yes. We've had to change our setup a little bit to socially distance, so we've moved Mitch Johnson to a nice little beach area up in Port Chatham, Alaska, and that's where he's going to be coming to you from.
I'm an introvert by birth, so I generally like to keep it.
I did bring you each a gift.
Oh.
My wife and I earlier this summer made some Sasquatch masks.
Oh, nice.
Whether you want to, if you use them, they're machine washable. If you want to just put them in your Bigfoot library and keep them as a remembrance of Squatching in 2020. And so you just pop them out like this. And actually, these are a bribe, so you don't push the BS button on me. So I was watching last week.
Smart man.
And so, okay. So anyway, I brought that for you.
Well, thank you very much for that. And yeah, the configuration of the table. Yeah, I'm getting a little jumpy, but we couldn't reach the BF button if we had to. The BS button's out of the way. So, anyways, well, Kevin, could you tell us a little bit more about your work experience and educational background? Because I think that's important.
Well, I graduated from Washington State University. As far as Washington State University being related to Bigfoot, Dr. Grover Krantz,
Yeah.
the Bigfoot history then right there. So yeah, I was a veterinarian for 35 years and retired. So I have more time now, even more time to be out in the woods now. I grew up here in Spokane, and as a youngster, I saw Roger Patterson present the Patterson-Gimlin film live here in the old Spokane Coliseum. And when I first saw that on the screen, the big screen, my brain was, that's not a man in the suit. That is an animal. Look at that animal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Now, what year was that for the audience here?
Well, of course, it was filmed in the fall of '67, but then he did a little bit of a tour. I think he went down to, was it Eugene, Oregon, over to Idaho, Boise, Idaho maybe, Great Falls, Montana, Spokane, and then he went up to Vancouver, British Columbia. And that's where a lot of the primatologists, zoologists met up there too, in Vancouver, BC, to watch the film.
I think it's important to stress too, when you were a veterinary student at the time.
No, this was when I was like 10 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just trying to clarify that
I'm
up.
aging. Yeah.
Well, no,
myself,
no, not a problem. A veterinarian would look at something.
Yeah,
let me ask you this then. When you see that film now that you're a trained veterinarian, do you still have the same perception that no, that is not a human, that is something else? Do you still have that same perception of the film?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't know if you're aware, Mitch, of that they have seen, they keep enhancing the film, and they have seen a hernia on the lateral thigh.
Oh,
the
really?
outside thigh.
I've
You've
seen that.
that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That is, and I've talked to Dr. Meldrum at some conferences, and he said that I shouldn't probably use his words, but he said he had a student in his class that she had fallen off her horse, and she had a hernia in the exact same spot on the lateral thigh as what is seen in the film on Patty. We call her Patty.
Patty, when at the time you went to the Coliseum and saw this, how many people showed up? I'd be interested.
Oh, it was packed.
Yeah,
there were a lot of people there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I remember.
And so I followed this, and so then afterwards he started an association, and he sent out newsletters. He called them bulletins, and I signed up for that, and I still have those original bulletins with me. So I've been following this topic than most of my life.
Well, this kind of leads into my next question. It was like, how did you get into Bigfoot? How did you get interested? So actually, it started for you at that young of an age.
Yeah, it just did. When I watched that on, like I say, being presented, it just hit me. Look at that animal, and so my take on it is that we keep is that we're working on a giant jigsaw puzzle, and with 1 billion pieces. And each piece represents a sighting, an encounter, and we have to put all these pieces into the puzzle too of the indigenous people's beliefs about Bigfoot. And so look, if you stop and think about the knowledge and what we've been learning even since the Patterson-Gimlin film, and so my take is my approach is one of I want to keep having encounters. I want them to come into camp at night after I've gone into my tent, and my tent's been shaken numerous times, and so careful what you wish for. But and so I want to keep having those encounters, and and each investigator is going to have a different approach. I want to mention that right at the start. Everybody's going to do something different, but I'm out there scouting as an investigator with the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. We're out there. We're looking for evidence. We're interviewing witnesses. We're checking hot spots. And
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
I'll keep you going on that, but for the benefit of our audience, I would like you to explain what the BFRO is and exactly what an investigator does.
Yeah, it's to be an investigator is by invitation only, and so there's investigators all around throughout the United States and in Canada. We can share information, evidence with each other then too, and we put on expeditions. So people that want to put their foot into the water of Bigfooting and see, what's out there. People that I've been taking people on expeditions that have hardly been camping. And so but that's what I enjoy then too, is to have somebody experience something, too. I still remember my first time my wife heard wood knocks and the look on her face, and she said, and she knew immediately what they were, and she said, "Oh, I really hope that was a giant woodpecker." And so, but so just to, like I say, having, people get out there and showing them, hey, this stuff is going on out there. And so my approach then too is that, so I'm scouting for expedition sites. I'm checking on hot spots, following up where witnesses have seen things. And my approach is based on the phrase that I think they're curiously afraid. And what that means to me is that they are so curious about us, can be so curious about what we're doing, but yet they're afraid, of contact. They don't want to be seen. And so I do things, I have a lot of things that I do to try to get that curiosity up and going.
You'd sent me something, and I want you to talk about this, because I want to talk about evidence, because you have a lot to present, and I want to ask you about this, what you had sent me here, and it's a flow of evidence chart, and I have never seen this before, and I'd like you to talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, well, this keeps me grounded, too, so to speak. I'm always asking myself, when I hear something or see something, find something, what else could it be other than Bigfoot? Question everything. And so, like sounds up there, recordings, the sounds, I don't even think that should be that high.
I agree.
Because let me be a skeptic here for a minute. I have audio, okay, but I'm a skeptic, or you have audio, Stephen, and I'm a skeptic, and I say, well, how do I know that wasn't your friend out there? How do I know that wasn't Mitch out there doing wood knocks? How do I know that wasn't Mitch out there practicing howls and things like that? And so, you'd have to actually have a sound, a vocalization analyzed by somebody that compares to known wildlife out there. Yeah. So what I do, one of my goals though, is what I would like to have happen is to have one near my audio recorder and have some of the gibberish, the chatter, like in the Sierra sounds. I always
thought that Sierras. See, I've only heard Bigfoot chatter once in my life. One time in my life, and it was during this really frightening encounter that I had up on Vancouver Island in the middle of the night in the wintertime and stuff. And it sounded very baboonish. That's what it sounded like. And there was one speaking to another. And after it came right, I could go into the whole story, but it came down and touched me and then went away. And it stopped about 25 feet from me, and it kind of did this. It sounded like a monkey kind of go, kind of that. And then the other one responded up there, but it was like Lancelot Link kind of baboonish kind of talking. And that's the only time I've ever heard that. The only time ever. Yeah. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just heard that. And then the other one responded back to it, and that was the end of it. So the Sierra Sound thing was interesting.
Yeah. And then tracks down there too. And I think a couple of reasons tracks are down there is that on social media I see an awful lot of, to me, in my opinion, are bear double steps, the bear, overlapping bear tracks. And so you really have to examine the tracks, and cast them, and then do we even need to have somebody look at that cast that's experienced, like a Dr. Meldrum or a Cliff Barrickman? Too. But keep casting. Everybody out there, keep casting.
I put more stock in tracks than I do recordings.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because like I said, unless you're going to have it analyzed by NASA or something like that.
What the audio does when I get audio, what it does for me is that it doesn't prove anything to the skeptics out there. Yeah. But it confirms to me, because I was there.
Yeah.
I knew where people were at. I knew what was going on. We got this audio, and so the same thing with you. You're on your expeditions, and you hear something, you get audio of it. It confirms to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. See what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's where the recordings, that it confirms it to me.
Yeah.
But a skeptic out there, the people out there, they're saying, you people are crazy.
Right.
Your friend was out there howling.
I believe it was Grover Krantz who said this, and I read it in an article, I think, before he passed away. And I think it was an article, was like in 2012 or something. And one of the things that he had pointed out was, it was kind of in the flow of this evidence thing here to a degree, that like we have thousands of eyewitness accounts, and we have thousands of tracks or hundreds, all of these things. Mm-hmm. And Grover Krantz said something that I thought was very significant, and this is where my position is. It's time for a body. It's time for a specimen and stuff. And in our expeditions and in the research that we do, that's primarily what we're out for. We're going to bring along all the gear now to get the audio and the film and all of that. But it's specifically in Port Chatham, when I mentioned that earlier, where we wanted to complete the mission, is we wanted to go up into the area there of the Lake of No Return, where we thought the caves were, and hopefully find a body. And that doesn't mean go out and, there he is, and shoot him. That's not what we're talking about. Because there's going to have to be deceased ones at some point. Where we may find some bones or things of that nature we haven't found. That's just my thought on that.
Yeah, and my response to that is good luck. I think it's like looking for a needle in 10,000 haystacks.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
So we're
I could keep going to, and with DNA. I don't know if we want to take more time on this, but what needs to be happen with DNA is we need to see where the DNA come from.
Right.
We need to see the suspect. We need to see on a dash cam a Bigfoot get clipped by a truck and it left skin on the bumper.
Exactly.
Somebody needs to be filming a Bigfoot running across the field, and it catches its leg on the barbed wire fence.
Right.
And they
You've
get
got
the
to have a subject.
In law enforcement, what do we do? We find DNA at the crime scene, and then we have the suspect in custody.
Yeah.
And you got the DNA. Well, we have to, for DNA, really, to me, we got to find the suspect, or see the suspect leave the DNA sample.
Exactly, because I think a lot of time is wasted on the DNA thing right now. I really do, because you have nothing to compare it to, and so people are spending a lot of time and a lot of money and all this kind of stuff to say, well, we've got this DNA and it contains a little bit of this and it contains a little bit of that, but we don't know where it came from. And so I don't put a lot of stock in that. I want the body. That's really what we're after. What say you, Mitch, from Port Chatham?
From Port Chatham. Well, it's nice weather, as you can see from the photo. If you've never been to Alaska, it is a great state to visit. So, it's some of the conclusions that people jump to on the internet. Not taking anything away from them. It's just, there's just a lack of evidence, or maybe it's a lack of the presentation. I know myself personally. I'm going to look onto their website here very soon to see about their upcoming expeditions, because all of our travels have been somewhat limited lately. So I think it'd be a hoot, as they say. So to be on the expedition. I'm not a researcher.
We don't have any dates set for next year yet, because of the current situation, going on. But I may even be leading co-leading two Washington expeditions next year for the BFRO, and also with my co-leader that's in Montana, Western Montana. We don't want to forget about, when we talk about the Pacific Northwest, we don't want to forget about Western Montana. And
I'm really anxious for you to get in and talk about your recent trip into Montana, because I try to get people to send in information about sightings and this and that and anything that's going on, and I get almost nothing out of Montana. Almost nothing. Although I've got a number of phone calls from people in Montana around the Missoula area that tell me that if I really want a Bigfoot, I need to come over there, because they're out there hanging around with Bigfoot every day. Every day. They can go out every day, and it's, why am I wasting my time going to Port Chatham, Alaska, when we can just go outside of Missoula, Montana, and they'll introduce me to a whole clan, and we'll get to do gifting, and we'll get to chat a bit and stuff like that. So I really haven't followed up on those. But what you've got is some significant stuff. So I would like you to jump into that and tell us what you've been up to in Montana when you were there, and I believe you have some evidence to show us.
Yes, mid-September of this year, there was a BFRO expedition in Montana, and we were our camp was basically in a horseshoe shape, and so I was over here, and the next investigator, there was a little bit of a gap, and she had her car parked and then on the other side of her car, she had her table with her camp stove and then her tent. And so we were just a few yards away, a little ways away. I talked about curiosity. One of the things I'd like to do, one of the things we do, is we'll take an empty water bottle and I'll smash it a little bit so that it's really crunchy, so that it really this needs to be empty and really make it crunchy. I put one on I had a 5-gallon water container on my little table, and I put one like this into the handle of the water container so the wind wouldn't blow it away. So something with a hand, need to pull it out. And if you hear this crunching walking around your camp, and the investigator that was next to me, on her car, she put an empty water bottle under the driver's side windshield wiper and another water bottle next to it. And so we had those set up. The one night, and she also had a handheld broadcast speaker and linked to her phone, and she had howls, Bigfoot howls, on her phone that she could broadcast from this speaker. And so she went up the valley with some people the one night, and myself and a couple guys paralleled her, and we were up on the north side of the valley, up higher, and she did some broadcasting. I did some wood knocks. The next night, I went back to the same spot where I was with another guy, and she drove up with some other people in a vehicle up the south side of the mountain. And there was a point where the road cut back to the southeast. And they were going to go up to that point and broadcast. Well, I got into position, and all of a sudden I hear this beautiful Ohio howl. And I said to the guy next to me, "Oh, she's broadcasting." And then 10 minutes later, there was another one, but they were to the southeast. No. And I said to the other guy, I said, "Well, they're not in position where they're supposed to be." The next thing you know, they're on the walkie-talkies, and I don't like to jabber on back and forth on the walkie-talkie, but they said, "We're picking up a heat signature behind you and to your west." And I said, "Well, okay, I'll go try to look for that. I'm gonna, definitely. But have you guys broadcasted yet?" And they said no. No. So I heard. So the behavior was, there a Bigfoot that heard us broadcasting and wood knocking in that valley the night before and did not respond? It came back the next night to see if that Bigfoot was still in the valley.
Interesting story. Now I want to, for our audience here, Kevin had mentioned you heard a Ohio howl, and would that by any chance be something that sounds like this? Wow, I didn't waste my money on this baby then, did I? Because this comes with 3 other different sounds you may hear.
Really?
Yeah, so the Ohio howl. Now, if I heard that, I'm going the other way.
Well, to me, like I say, I try to get them in camp, and we did. Then I truly believe then that we had them in camp. We did get when everybody with the heat signature thing. I went towards the area. I could not see anything. I radioed back to them and I said, I don't see anything with my thermal. Where is it again? And they said, well, it's gone now. And that's all they said. It disappeared. And so we got back to camp, around the campfire for a little while. One person all of a sudden, he said, I heard a thud behind me. A little bit later, another person said, I heard wood knocks behind me to the north. And another person said, well, a couple of minutes ago, I heard some wood knocks to the south. So then so that was Friday night. 4:45 Saturday morning, I was awakened. I thought it was the investigator's stove that was next to me. But it may have been the sound of the water bottles moving. Yeah, because they got moved. I heard something that clanged. Thought it was the stove. I listened for a little bit, but then I was cold, and so I got up and started my tent heater.
Tent heater?
Tent heater, yeah. At my
I
age,
got to get one of those.
Yes. But you go click, click, to get the pilot light going. She heard that, and I climbed back in. She heard me do that. I climbed back in my sleeping bag. Then I heard 3 whistles to the east. And she said then that she had 2 things thrown at her tent. And then you keep going around the horseshoe, and there was a guy that was sleeping in the back of his pickup truck, but he had a walled off canopy behind his truck. He heard walking and a hoof, and then beyond him there was a tent.
Okay.
There was a tent that had some things had something thrown at their tent.
Now, you sent me a few audio pieces.
Well, those were earlier though. Those were made. Do you have the picture of the water bottles?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But you said whistle real quick.
Okay.
Now, are these the whistles you're talking about? I'd like to play some.
No, the whistles I sent you were actually from earlier in the summer on the Washington Cascades.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did the whistles that you heard in Montana, were they similar to this?
The ones that I sent you increase in pitch. Go higher. Yeah. The ones I heard were just the same pitch. Okay. Whistle.
Well, since I have this audio up, I just want to play it.
Okay.
Real quick.
Yeah.
If we can. So you can hear 3 distinct whistles.
But this was from the Washington Cascades.
That's a whistle I've heard before. I'm playing one more time.
If you listen closer to that third one, I can almost hear air coming out.
Yeah.
Some people will say that's a bird, but what I was on my audio recorder was actually about a 40-minute segment that started out with tree branches, rock clacks, and wood knocks. And if that was a bird, wouldn't it have been disturbed right when there was some rock clacking and wood knocking going on? Why, after 40 minutes of off and on sounds like that was on my audio recorder, then why all of a sudden would a bird whistle 3 times? Yeah. But back to Montana.
Now this is Montana.
This is Montana. So this was the water bottles, and as you can see, they're on the passenger side, and they were moved. Note that there's no raccoon tracks on the hood of the car. We found in between her car and my tent on the ground was a empty Sour Patch candy bag, and one of the people had pushed that down into his mesh pouch on his chair the night before over by the campfire. So something I don't know whether a pack rat, a wood rat, could have gotten that out of there, and took it over 30 yards, but it was on the ground between my tent and her car. These water bottles.
Where were these
moved.
water bottles?
One was under. She put one under the windshield wiper on the driver's side, and the other one was laying then underneath the wiper. They were moved over there like that to the passenger side. And note where the trail camera is.
Yeah,
at.
I see. That's what that little trail camera.
That's the trail camera. Your guest last week, Bill, it's like, yeah, Bill, keep going. I love what he's doing with the trail cameras. Yeah, because my thoughts on the trail cameras, I'm not a fan of them. There's been, people have thought, oh, Bigfoot sees the infrared coming from him. There's a sound, a frequency or something coming from. And now what I really think is that they're putting out an electric field. Everything puts out an electric field. Our heart. You can do an EKG, an ECG on our heart and see see how it's going. But so I just don't like strapping trail cameras to trees either. Like you guys talked about last week.
Yeah.
So I've been putting them on my truck.
Yeah.
To try to disguise them.
Yeah.
And we had one right there, and it was not triggered. Whatever moved those water bottles did not trigger that trail camera.
Yeah, to me, it's an exercise in futility to put out trail cameras, but we do it as a
Well, the saying goes, if you don't put any out, then you have 0% chance of catching anything. On the audio.
When we go out now, I bring a whole infrared camera system that records on a loop and stuff, and I've actually gotten a few. Not sure what that is kind of thing on those, but I really like those systems, and we'll run it the whole time we're there. We'll continuously run the camera systems, and I like those.
So she was looking at she was looking at the front end of her car for hair, looking for evidence, looking for hair, and she said, "Kevin, come look at this." And here in the grill of the car, there was a cigarette butt smashed in the space of the grill, and there were cigarette butts, not from us, but around the campfire campfire ring from other people. And why would a person, if she stopped at a convenience store while driving to Montana, why would a person stuff a cigarette butt in the grill of your car?
Did the car have Washington plates?
Yes.
There could be a possibility. It's Montana,
Anyway, so we found those things, and then we go around to where the person heard the walking or the stomping. We found 3 tracks that were in the hard ground. Amazingly.
So you found 3 tracks around your camp?
Yes, where he heard. This was over where he heard walking. And I think that it may have even been something that just stomped, and because the depth of them. And we also found another impression too, using a tracking pole. And if your viewers don't know how to make a tracking pole or how to use it,
explain what a tracking pole is.
Oh boy, well, almost need to demonstrate sometime. But if you find 2 tracks, then you make a pole, and you go. You make heel to heel, then length of the. So you put a notch in a long stick or a long pole. You put a notch back here, and at the heel of the one track. Then at the heel of the next track is the end of the pole. Then you also up here make a notch where the front of the first track is. So then you take that pole and you move it up to the second track. And so you have that notch or rubber band or whatever at the heel of the second track. And the other notch should match pretty close then to the front of that second track. And then out at the end of that pole, of that tracking pole, should be somewhere out in there. You start kind of sweeping it
That
around.
is interesting. I've
Should be
never
the
heard of
heel.
this before.
Okay, so you understand? Are
Yeah,
you
I understand.
following
Yeah,
that?
I follow- exactly.
So you're
Yeah,
starting to follow. Where's the next?
That's pretty bright.
Where's the next heel? Well, it's a tracker's. I'm not a certified tracker.
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Let me
neither
say
am I,
that. Okay, so we found, and so we casted the. I do not have all 3 casts. It's nice to keep a little track line together, but it's also nice to share. And so 2 other investigators took the other 2 tracks. They looked a little better, but I wanted to keep this 3rd one because it stepped on a root and it cracked
Now
the
you're
root.
You're going to show us that track, right? Yeah.
And so it broke, it cracked this root. But look at look at the ground, the rocks, the pebbles in there, how hard the ground was, and you can see the depth. If I show it that way, in that hard ground, and like track number 2, I could not believe the depth of it. In that hard of ground, and so it wasn't a bear having its weight spread out over 4 paws, and that.
Yeah. And how long is that track?
About 13 and a half inches.
About 13 and a half
It's
inches.
like I say, it's not as good. The only reason that I kept this one, like I say, it was in line with the other 2. This was number 3, and I just wanted to, to show some action. That, stepping on a root like that. So,
wow.
So speaking of casts, I can keep on going here to my sighting in May.
Yes. Now the sighting that you're going to describe for us was at this time when you got this out on this expedition where you got this track?
This was Montana. This was in the water bottles. And that was mid-September of 2020. And so I had my sighting on May 14th. 2020.
And where was that?
And that was in the Cascades, Washington Cascades. Yeah. And sunny day, 2:30 in the afternoon.
Daytime.
Yeah. We were going up and it was a road crossing. And when I say road crossing, I know you're going to ask me questions. Well, how many steps did it take to get across the road? How tall was it? Well, I'll keep going here because this was unique. So we were climbing an elevation. We were going up this Forest Service road. There was a road that took off to our right, which went up a ways and dead ended. There was a couple elk down there at that one. Then just a little further beyond was another road that cut up to the right, and we went up that one. And it was starting to get overgrown, the boughs of the trees starting to come out. And in fact, even further beyond, down the road, there was a stretch where it was really overgrown. I put a long scratch down the side of my truck, but as one guy told me one time, that's not a scratch, that's called cascade pinstriping. So my truck is detailed with cascade pinstriping. But we go around this corner, I drive around this corner, and my friend and fellow investigator was in a car behind me with his wife. So I'm alone in my truck, though, in the lead. I come around this corner, and I look up ahead on a little bit of a straightaway, and there was this big boulder to the left and a steep bank of dirt and sand going up like this on the left side. And I'm getting closer and closer. I can't even tell you how fast I was driving, but I'm approaching, and I see on the side of the boulder, and I measured the boulder later, was 3.5 feet wide, 3.5 feet tall. On the side towards the bank, I see this black. And I'm just thinking, well, there's black decaying chunks of wood all over the forest. There's something laying there.
Right.
Yeah. I'm getting closer and closer to the boulder, and all of a sudden, what leaps out leaps across the road in front of me. The best way I could get the picture in your mind to describe it, that it was as if it was a linebacker leaping to go tackle the quarterback. But there were no arms outstretched. There were no front legs. There was no bear snout. There were no ears sticking up. It was black, hair about the length of a black bear. But this was no bear. I'll say it a million times. And so I can demonstrate what it would look like, because it really confused me at first, because I saw this thing sticking up and my brain was like, there's like a wingtip there at its lower back, and it was like, what is that? And well, it took me a while to process, and I kept replaying it in my mind. And what it looked like then is, I'll get into the position, okay? And this is what was in midair. So, this is what was
so it was
leaping.
airborne.
So it leaped.
Yeah.
I mean, in track and field, your jump,
Yeah.
So anyway, so this is what went across, and so like I say, it wasn't a moose, it wasn't a bear, and it was in this position then. Its head also too was a little bit conical shaped, and it then, like I say, looked about maybe like a linebacker. So if a linebacker is like 6'2", 220 pounds, give or take, then. And so I'll get in this position, and I'll see it.
All right, let's
okay,
see it.
So you're behind the wheel.
I'm driving.
You're driving. Okay, and this
Urge.
and the boulder over here, and this leaps out, and it was in. If I get my hand here, it was in. This is the position as it leaped. And this is what, like I say, this was its hand and fingers. That was its hands and fingers sticking up, and like I say, my mind was.
Did you like slam on the brakes or what?
I can't even tell you what I did.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I stopped or not. I forgot to even ask my friend like what, but we did, and it seemed, I can't even tell you then quite what the distance was, because I was moving.
Yeah.
But it seemed very close in my mind then what I saw, and then so of course we stopped.
Yeah.
And I said to my friend, I said, what? You're not going to believe what I just saw. And he didn't see it because they were back behind me. And we looked on the edge, and he said, and he actually saw, he said, look, it looks like there's almost 2 impressions here where it landed, because it landed on the other side of the road, and I saw for 3 seconds or so, I saw this black butt just there. It's like
black butt?
Like it landed in a crouching position. And I couldn't see the rest of the body because, like I say, boughs were growing out, trying to grow out onto this road, from the edges of the road. So the body was blocked, and so the other side of the road went like this. You know how some of these the Forest Service roads go like that. So, like I say, my friend found or saw like these almost 2 impressions where it landed. We looked down on the hillside, and here's this sliding track, and then down, and then even further down beyond that was where like something else slid. The dirt was just slid, and I went down there, and I was going to try to start to take pictures. I try to take like 5 pictures of every track that I find.
Yeah.
One from each side, one from the front, one from the back, one over the top. I started to get close to the track, and I slipped myself and went sliding on my hip. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to mix up my casting material up on the road, and then I'm going to come down and try to pour it and do the best I can to keep the casting material on this sliding track. And then here's what I got.
Yeah, you have a track to show us, right? Let's take a look at that. Now that is that's a big track.
Well, actually, this is where it slid. So like I say, when I call it a sliding track, this is the sliding part that I tried to get cast material up to catch that part. So actually, it doesn't start until probably in here where it pushed off, where it compressed the ground more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How thick is it?
So.
Yeah. Okay. Can you turn it this way so that they can all get a look at the front side of that too?
But we could see, and it pushed dirt. Okay, this you can see where my cast material it pushed dirt into the front because it slid. It's like there was a foot that slid. And some people will say, well, did you see the Bigfoot make this track? No, because it went over what I saw went over the edge.
Right.
Yeah. And so, but this is what we found immediately, then afterwards. And you can make out, what I like is if the toes splayed, it's like there's a spread.
Yeah.
See if the ball of the
you see a lot of tracks. I mean, it's like you'll see now. For reference, could you?
You able to see that, Mitch?
Okay.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah, for reference, can you grab you have a replica of the Patty track.
Yeah.
For the Patterson Gimlet. Could you grab that? I want you all to see this. He's got a replica of the.
So this is a copy, from the Patterson Gimlin film from Patty making that, and so here are the toes like that, but
look at the size of that.
well, like I say, remember down here though is where it slid.
Right.
Is
That
where
part
it
of it
slid on the hillside.
So, because we've got like up here in Ponderay, we've got a number of track castings down, and some of them which is interesting is the toes are all splayed out. If that's right terminology and stuff, they're not perfectly looking like a regular foot like the Patty one is. Some of them, the majority of them that we're seeing up there, the toes, it's like there's some kind of weird thing with their toes that they do. They splay out like that, sometimes at weird angles. And I was looking up some the Cripplefoot tracks from the 69 Bossburg up there north of Stevens County, which was a really famous. There were some sightings, but it was the track thing with it. And when you look at the tracks, they call it the Cripplefoot because one of them seems to be really messed up foot-wise, but then they have another casting and stuff, but the toes do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because you've got different Bigfoot that have different foot configurations. The layouts of the foot, which I find are interesting.
Well, yeah. And this was, like I say, this was in motion. This was on a hillside, steep hillside, and it pushed, like I say, pushed dirt up in front of it, but yet we were able to catch some like toe type.
Now, once again, can you say generally where you were at? You said the Cascades?
The east slope of the Cascades, Washington Cascades. Yeah.
So, what's the nearest town?
Seattle?
No.
Yeah, no. Now you don't go over the pass. No, it's on, like I say, it's on the east side of the Washington Cascades.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's your secret hotspot now?
Well, 10 weeks later, there was a BFRO. We had a BFRO expedition there, and there was another investigator had a sighting of a black one. A daylight sighting.
So it's an area that you guys are still actively in.
So I want to keep going back to that area for sure.
I have to ask you, and I don't know if you hear a lot of rumors, but I heard a rumor this past year, this year back in spring, that you guys had spent a few months up in Ponderay County, up where we've been at. Was the BFRO up there doing some things?
My last fall, myself and another BFRO investigator were in northern Idaho, and I had that stomping by my tent, and it just shook the ground. As I'm laying there in my sleeping bag, and and I'm thinking, okay, because I'm always questioning. I'm always thinking, okay, what else could it be? So I'm thinking, okay, a deer bounded by my tent. In the morning, I'm going to see deer tracks out here. No, there were 16-inch impressions. I used the morning sunlight. Use the sunlight to look for your tracks and your impressions. Yeah, I could see in the morning sunlight with the angle like that of the light, and I could see these impressions going by my tent. There were no deer tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and okay, and so that you had the track that was near your tent, and that was this one here. I'm
Well, this other one was from the 10 weeks later, the Washington expedition, and that was when we had the whistles going on,
Yeah.
and wood knocks and everything that one night where these two guys were, and we had a person about 1,000 feet higher than us camping, and I've known him for like 4 years, and very credible, and he was checking behind his camp every day. There was a major game trail and a little stream, and in between the game trail and the stream, the ground was very soft. It was like firm mud.
Yeah.
And he was checking, and then he got up Saturday morning and went to do his little check, and he found this track. And this is an example of how frustrating it can be out there, because the toes landed on a stick. If you'd have been there with me to see it, before I casted it, you would have been going, wow. But after we get the cast, though, like this, you almost, well, I have to call this inconclusive.
Right.
But if you would have been there with me to see it.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Can you just hold?
And this one is 16 inches long, 16 and a half inches long to the stick back to the heel.
Look at the size of that.
Well, look how it's not a bare double step.
Yeah.
There's no claws back in here where the second paw of a bear would have landed. Look how straight the sides are. There's no instep. There's no anything like that. Straight sides to it. If I turn it this way, I don't know if they can see, but you can kind of see the dip where if the ball of the foot was in here, and you can kind of see a little dip going to the toes, going to where the toes were, and you may start to maybe pick up a little bit of one.
You can kind of see a little bit of the toe action
toe
there.
right there.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, yeah.
We're
but if it would have just stepped 2 inches further back,
it's really tough. I mean, I'm looking at what you got. It's really tough to find a good track. Didn't you have one more?
No, I think that's all the tracks I brought.
Wow. Wow.
So as far as track, but that's how frustrating sometimes it can be. And so sometimes what you see then before you cast is better than when the cast turns out, like you mentioned.
And it's tough. Like I said,
it just happens.
Since 2014 is really when I really started working on the Bigfoot investigations and expeditions and stuff like that. And then in that entire time, I've only casted 2 tracks. I mean, that entire time. Yeah. Because I really haven't found anything that's been worthwhile. So, what do you think?
You'll maybe find a lot of impressions.
Yeah. You'll find a lot
of impressions, and that's where that tracking pole, that tracking stick, and it lets you try to keep going, keep following the impressions.
It would have been when we found the trackway going up from the beach in Port Chatham, Alaska, in 2018. We found 2 really nice impressions in the moss, but it wasn't anything that you could cast. They were just impressions. And then as it went up into the what I call the Valley of Death, there were you could see toe marks where it was running, and the toes were gripping as it was running up, up into the woods, up the valley there, up towards that lake and stuff. But man, I learned a lot from you today. In particular, the track pole. That's brilliant.
Well, it's
a tracking stick.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I'm not a certified tracker, but that's a tracker's tracker's technique. Then that way too.
Yeah. What'd you say about that, Mitch?
Oh, I'm reminded of my time back in university, as they say in other parts of the world. It's like I'm sitting at a lecture at WSU, and I have a better understanding and appreciation for veterinarians just having graduated to WSU, a lot of friends, classmates over the years. Very misunderstood profession, to be honest with you. So yes, I'm really so happy that you took the time to come here and talk to us.
Love your veterinarian.
Yeah.
I just got a couple quotes for your one quote. I don't know how much time we have left, but a lot of people say, "Yeah, you guys are crazy," or they'll say, "I'm crazy. You're nuts." You know, okay, but I like this quote. I like the mystery. You know, like I say,
Yeah.
I like taking people out that have hardly camped before, that have hardly been out there before. And so here's a quote by Chris Van Allsburg, the author of Jumanji and the Polar Express. He said, "The inclination to believe in the fantastic may strike some as a failure in logic or gullibility, but it's really a gift. A world that might have Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster is clearly superior to one that definitely does not."
I like that. Thank you.
I love that quote. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that quote with us. I really do. I like that. And I want to thank you very, very much for being on the show and sharing some of your experiences, and especially the tracks. See, I love tracks. I love looking at tracks. I mean, you've got some phenomenal stuff there. Is anything else coming up that you've got going on here, or is it you on hold like us with the COVID thing?
That in wintertime, yeah.
In wintertime, yeah, winter's among us. Well, once again, I'd like to thank Kevin Llewellyn for coming on the show, and look forward to hearing more about what you're doing in the future.
Oh, it's been great seeing you again. Hope to see you soon.
You bet.
Again. Yep.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
and
Mitch.
we're
Thanks.
going to slip into a break now. Well, welcome back to the show. Boy, that was some interesting stuff. What do you think, Mitch?
Oh, it just kind of blew my mind away. I've never thought of veterinarians being the logical experts to listen to about Sasquatch, but it makes total sense. Absolutely. I don't know what most people feel, but you know, when someone starts to speak about this topic, I'm just kind of like, what makes you an expert? You know,
Yeah.
And if you are a veterinarian or a retired veterinarian or whichever, man, your credibility goes through the roof. You've studied every animal out there. So when he says it's not a bear, no, it's not a bear.
Yeah.
I mean, you just take that to the bank, you know.
The sighting that he had where it was jumping across the
Yep.
road, and especially, that's interesting to me. And I mean, that's exciting too. I'd love to see
Absolutely.
something like that.
Oh,
Plus, it
gosh.
was at, what did you say, 2:30 in the afternoon?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people think that majority of Bigfoot sightings actually occur at night. And I've actually done some research on that, and I may be misquoting them. I hope not. But one site that I really like is Sasquatch Masks, and they have they break down all this data about, you know, when sightings occur and and all this kind of stuff. And I found that actually most sightings do occur in the daytime, not in the evening, which I found is interesting. Well, we've ran out of time, and I want to thank you again for watching the show. We hope you learned a lot. We sure did. It was a pleasure having Kevin on, and that's all the time we have now. So be well, my friends. Be kind to one another, and we'll see you next week.
There's a fable of a beast that once roamed this land. Some say still exists as a big tall ape man, standing over 8 feet tall, quite a sight to see. Living in the forest, he's quite a mystery. Bigfoot, Bigfoot, roaming through the land. Bigfoot, Bigfoot, a hairy ape-like man.